Thanks, Leisha. I really appreciate it. Super excited to jump into Texas McCombs MBA application. I know that if you guys have watched any of the other videos, we jump in immediately to the actual application, but McCombs is a little bit different in the fact that one, it's offering a waiver this year, and that they make you sign up for a little bit of their own kind of like login ID. So I wanted to do that quickly just because it's a little bit different from other schools. So we'll get started here, and I'm definitely going to be switching screens and sharing different tabs. So just bear with me as we kind of navigate this process. So Texas McCombs is an amazing MBA program, and if you go to their website, you'll see that you can get into their application process and applying. So they'll go through the steps of what's needed for the application itself. But I know that a lot of people are interested in the waiver, so I wanted to make sure you knew where to find it and how it kind of works. So if you click on this test waiver petition, you will be taken to a pop-up screen. And let me see if I can share that with you guys. Oops, sorry. I'm going to share. Sorry about that. So this is the test waiver. And so if we go through the test waiver, you can see it does make you start the application itself. Can you guys see that okay? It looks a little bit different on my screen, but
yeah, I got it up.
Okay, cool. So it does make you create the application itself, you start it, and then you submit the waiver prior to submitting the entire application. So just, know that you can actually submit the waiver without having to complete the entire application, which maybe takes a little bit of pressure off of you of like, oh my gosh, I have to have everything ready for this application before I even know if I get a waiver for the GMAT and GRE. I know that a lot of people have questions about that. So, if you do have questions, go ahead and ask them in the chat box. Alicia will be able to help us with navigating those. But, just know that this is the process for getting the waiver. Okay, so
cool. Quick general question, Jen. Yeah. In what situations do you recommend that someone submits this test waiver?
Yeah, good question. So if you think that you have a competitive background with strong academics, you can absolutely request that you get a GMAT or GRE waiver from Texas McCombs. Let's say that you don't have a GMAT or GRE score yet, or maybe you don't feel like it's the best that it can be. The good part about especially their process is you can submit all of your data for them to understand if you're well qualified and make a decision. If they do decline your test waiver, you can still submit your GMAT or GRE score or take it and then submit your application. So, it's kind of like no harm, no foul. If you ask for the waiver and don't get it, then you have the ability to actually submit with a score as well. So again, like if that's, you're like, I'm crunched for time, I absolutely want to do this, but I don't have time to take the GMAT or GRE, the test waiver can definitely be a great option. If you're not feeling like your GMAT or GRE score are representing your academic capabilities, that's another opportunity for you to maybe just ask for a waiver and not have to worry about sharing with them a low score. So any other questions about that, Alicia?
No, I think we're good for now.
Okay. Awesome. So I am going to switch over now, and I wish that it would, sorry, I know that this is a little cumbersome, but I wanted to make sure that we had that part kind of under, that we all were part of that process. So once you submit, once you go to the start application process.
Oh, I'm not seeing the screen share now.
Yeah, I'm about to. Sorry. I was trying to navigate and see which one I wanted to do first. So again, Texas McCombs does have a little bit of a different system that they do ask you to sign up for an EID number with them. And so it's essentially just registering in their system to start an application. So you do have to create that, go through and verify through your email, and then log into the portal. And if I clicked on the EID system, I did have a little bit of a harder time finding where to go to get to the application. So if you start your application and come back to it, I actually found it a lot easier to go back to the main application page and click the apply button. And then it brought me to this portal here where we are. So just a little bit of clarification. So once you do get registered and you start the application, I'm going to go ahead and you would hit start new application. And then what I have appear here will be what you'll see. So this is the portal itself, asking you for some very general information about who you are and what you have, like this basic demographic information. And the ones with the stars, obviously you need to fill in, but make sure that like if you have any specific like preferred names or anything that you absolutely put that in there. Mailing address obviously would be used for official communication. And then your current email address, phone numbers, etc. Some people do have questions about citizenship. So this is, where you would maybe try to figure out and determine which is the best answer for you. And then where your primary citizenship is. And if you have dual citizenship, the other location that it might be in. So, again, like do what fits best for you. And then the country of your legal residence. So where are you now? And if you're a Texas resident, so sometimes if you're a Texas resident or an in-state resident, this is most important because sometimes tuition's a little bit less expensive because it's subsidized as an in-state candidate. Sometimes not, just depends. Okay, so more on the demographics. So, they do ask you about your pronouns, and if you identify in the LGBTQA group. So this is an opportunity for you to share that information. If you do identify, what they're going to do is probably send you more targeted information specifically to the openness and welcomeness of that specific community to kind of help you feel comfortable with applying to their MBA program and connect you with candidates that have a similar background, or not candidates, but actual students, so that you can make sure that it's a welcome and inclusive environment. That's something that they really want to do. So that's the reason that they ask. If you don't feel comfortable with it, don't put it there. And then it'll ask you about your languages and if you speak another language. And so a lot of the times when people are, putting together their resume, they use an entire line for what languages they speak. And, you could actually put that in here in this application and actually put your fluency, etc., and add other ones. So if you do speak multiple languages, putting it in the actual application itself will help you with saving room on your resume. And that is pretty true for most schools. Okay, so, sorry. I was not born in 1975, but I'm definitely not born in the 1990s. But anyway, so you obviously have to fill out specific requirements to get past this actual screen. And then once
we might not be seeing the right screen. We're seeing Texas McCombs graduate applications.
Oh, interesting. Huh. Okay, hold on one second. Let me see.
It's always difficult with all these tabs. Okay, now we're on personal information.
Yeah, sorry. And I mean, I honestly thought that I had filled this all out before, so sorry. And so I will fill this out as we go. Oh my goodness. Sorry about that. Oh, nope. Not a dual citizen. Wow. So it didn't ask me to do this before, but maybe I have done something to trigger it. All right. So hopefully we can move to the next screen. Sorry about that. Oh, goodness. We're going to say I live in Alaska. Sounds great. I actually lived there before, so that's good. Okay, so let's see if it will let me move on to program information. Okay, it's loading. Give it a minute. Okay, perfect. Yay! Sorry about that. And again, like if you're watching this as a recorded episode, please, feel free to post your questions. GMAT Club will be monitoring them. So you can always get those questions answered later on as well. So when we move into program information, this is, one of those great things about McCombs is that there are a ton of different concentrations that you can choose from. And so, you're going to want to choose what best fits you and where you're wanting to go. And if you are not 100% sure yet, global business might be a great idea, or general management is another one. But you can kind of, if you need to go generic or vanilla, then you can. But I would say it's better if you pick a specific concentration to help the committee get to understand you and your application a little bit better. So the next part of this application, the committee is asking you, if you're not admitted to the full-time program, would you want to be considered for the part-time program? And so, this is something that happens at some schools, and it doesn't impact your admission to the full-time program or their decisions or anything like that. All it does is say, hey, you weren't admitted. If you wanted to transfer your application over to the part-time program, we would love to do that for you without you having to do anything else or fill out another application. And that committee can make their decision based off of what you've submitted for us and what our committee has, decided or what information they have, so that they can decide if, they want to offer you admission into the part-time program. So this is your opportunity. Maybe if you do live in the Austin or Dallas location, you can definitely, have this option as well. Somebody asked, and Johnny, nice to see you again. I think we were in an earlier talk this week. So is concentration something that's mentioned in the degree, or is it more clustering electives and courses as a bucket? So this does change per school. And I'll be honest, I can't remember exactly how this works for McCombs, but for the most part, when you choose a concentration, you're going to have a preset kind of curriculum that you'll follow. And then, with your second concentration, being able to share different electives that will work with them. And then from that point on, there is likely going to be some ability to customize what you want to pick as far as electives as well. But again, this changes from school to school. Okay, so additional information. This is going to ask you if you've applied again, or if you've applied before or not, and if you are a graduate. And I think they call them, like, if you're already a Longhorn, like hook 'em horns. So if you were part of that program then, or part of the school before, they want to know. And then they also want to know about any other programs that you're applying to. This is not going to be part of your application as far as like judgment of you specifically. This is just for them to be able to take this information in and know who their peer schools are. So it's more of like a research process. I used to work for Arizona State, WP Carey, and we actually consider ourselves a peer school with Texas McCombs. And so, knowing what each other is doing and who's applying to the same schools helps you with knowing what makes your program more competitive. And then the other thing would be, if you're completing any additional coursework, so maybe you've decided that you needed to take a statistics class, or you're doing something on Coursera, anything that you're doing in addition, you definitely want to add that here just so that they can see and add that to your profile, because that definitely boosts your profile for them. Now we'll move into family information. And so a lot of people ask, how much do I really need to share in here? Some of this information is more statistical information. It's not necessarily going to be reflected in your application or your decision itself. So a lot of the times, colleges are always going to be reporting how many students are first generation, as far as who's the first one to go to college in your family, or first one to get a master's degree, or if there was something more interesting, like your family owned their own business, this is another opportunity to share that with the committee. So you would talk about, what your parents, level of education was, and then are you the first one to graduate? And you would fill that out. And then if you're going to be a McNair's Fellow, obviously you would know if you were or not. So if you are, fill that out. And I wish that I knew exactly what that is, but you can always research it to find out more. And then they want to know about, are you married? Are you single? Do you have a domestic partner? And so this is an opportunity to share that. You do not have to share it, so you can decline if you want to. And if you have any dependents, again, this is up to you. This is helpful information for the actual MBA community for saying, again, it's not going to change whether you get admitted or not if you're married or you have kids. What it's going to change is how they help market to you and say like, oh, we really want Jen to come and we know that she has 2 kids and we want to make sure that she knows that we have a really inclusive community that's going to embrace her kids and that there's other people that have kids or partners that are part of this, community. And so that, she can feel supported and her family can be supported too. And then do you expect to relocate your family for the program? So you would just let them know. And again, if your significant other is also applying to MBA programs, it's great to let them know sometimes, because if you're applying as a couple, sometimes that can help sway the committee a little bit, in my opinion. So it will help them with deciding, well, we know if we want Jen, we have to admit Harry. And so, it could help. It could not. It could be nothing. It could be null. But it is good for them to know if you're applying as a couple, because plenty of couples apply to the same MBA program all the time. Okay, so test scores. Again, remember that they do offer that waiver. So if you don't have a waiver, or if you don't have a GMAT or GRE score, or you don't want to share it, you can use this waiver here by clicking on this. I'm not going to, because we've already gone through that process and it will probably mess up all my windows. But you can always just rewind to get to that screen. So if you want to submit your valid scores, it's going to talk to you about how you do everything and how you self-report them. And then you're going to add your test score here. This is part of your self-reporting. And sometimes this is the system that it is. Like, it just takes time for these to work. So you would, put in what your score is, the test date, all the specific information about your score, etc. here. There are specific fields that do have to be completed, but not all of them do, right? So, did you send it to UT Austin? You can decide if you wanted to do that or not. All right. So next, we're going to move on to educational information. This is the really fun part. So now we're going to talk about what kind of high school GED you got. And again, you're just going to go ahead and add record. And it takes a little bit of time. And then you'll put in your high school. And again, if your school is not listed here, then you can always put your other institution. This will likely happen if you are an international student. Did you graduate with a GED? No. So you would put in this information, and then it would take you back to the main screen. And then you would move on to putting in your undergrad information. So again, adding the record. And I believe this is where we get into a little bit of confusion about GPAs and such. So hold on one second. All right. So here's where we're going to put in the institution name. Again, if your institution does not show up, they do have most institutions across the globe in here. So this ties into their graduate college registration. So again, not only for MBA programs, but all master's programs. So they have a pretty good database. But so you'd, for me, mine was University of Georgia. Oh, look, see, there we go. And so then you would put in the dates that you attended, the level of study and degree. I'm actually going to fill this out right now because I want you to see. Sorry, I think we might have to put in the slash. So we'll put this into here so that we can always see what is. Man, you're getting a lot of information. So if you don't know your class rank, it's okay to not fill that in. But if you do, then you can definitely put that there. So if you by chance know that like you were in the top 5%, you could put, I believe, 5%. You put in your GPA. Now, this is a great thing that they have as a pop-up because a lot of people ask me like, Jen, what is my GPA on a 10.0 scale? How does that, identify with a 4.0 scale and what should I do? And to be honest, each one of these top MBA programs are going to take the application information you have that was submitted to the graduate college. Then they're going to take it over to the business school and they're going to put it in their own rubric. So even though they're asking you on a 4.0 scale, it's okay. Make your best guess. And then you can use different devices across the different systems to be able to put this in. So if you had to estimate what your GPA was on a 4.0 scale, then awesome. But I actually see that it actually allows you to choose a 10-point scale if you want to. Did you receive your degree? Awesome. So 05. Don't judge me on those dates. This form not complete yet. There's one problem with the submission. Okay. So it doesn't allow me to put in the 5% that I was going to try to do. So you could put that you were 5, like number 5 in the class. They'll never know how many people were in there. But there's another place where you could probably put like if you were in the top 5 or 10 or 15% of the class, that they can definitely see that as well. All right. Now we've added this. So let's say that you have a master's degree, or maybe you did a PGDM or something like that. You can always add another record to show them what you've accomplished. McCombs specifically does accept 3-year degrees. So if you have a BCom, totally fine. They do accept it. So it's okay if you don't have, a postgraduate degree to fill in that 1 year to get 4 years of experience. So this allows you to edit your record or to upload your transcript. So usually they're going to want you to upload that as part of the process. And then later on, they will ask for you to submit the official transcript whenever you get admitted. All right, so we are moving on. Does anybody have any questions before we move into employment history?
I think it's pretty clear so far.
Thanks, Alicia. Okay, so employment history. Again, they have this lovely process of adding a record. And they don't specify how many years they want you to include. So they want you to start with your most recent employer. I think that that's the best way to always go through and complete these is by first, putting in how long you've worked at, the company that you currently work for, and then work your way backwards. So you would put in the organization name, your title, your ending title, the job function. For the most part, things should fit in here. But like, let's say that you're not sure, like it doesn't encapsulate what you do. So some people might put like president's office, right? Like maybe, you have a weird, like a different title or something, and it's not represented in that selection. So you can always enter that in. They want to know which company you worked for. And then I think I'm gonna, and then I will put, okay, so then here's some other things that you need to do. Number of direct reports. This is a great opportunity, again, for you to show the committee, you know, how many people you're overseeing. And then from there, they're going to ask about compensation, starting and ending. So if you got a bonus, they want to know about that too. And it's honestly like the best plan is to be as close as you possibly can for these numbers. It doesn't have to be 100%, but if you are admitted into the program, they do background checks with you and all the employers that you've had. And so if you put that you made $500,000 a year at this job, then they went back and checked and you only made $300,000, which would be amazing. Then, they will, kind of ask, what's this mismatch and why aren't we getting the full picture here? So, that is something that you'll want to do, is try to be as accurate as possible, especially with end and start dates. Usually it's just for the month, not necessarily the specific day, but try to be as close as possible, because when they do go back and do the background check, those kind of things will get flagged if they're really off base. So the next thing you'll want to do is upload your resume. And again, like doing that in PDF format is going to be the best idea. Just that way, it always makes it easier, just in case. For formatting purposes, when they go and they print the paperwork and stuff, you can always know that it's going to come out in the right format and not all funky based on which system they use to print things or open it up in. And so a PDF just gives you certainty that all of your formatting will stay the same. It also helps if you have some weird spelling, for them not to be misunderlined as misspelled, and gives everybody a clear page to kind of read from. Awesome. Okay. So are you currently unemployed, less than full-time? So you'll want to be able to answer this. And if you do have, for some reason, you're unemployed or something's going on, you want to talk about that here. They do give you a character limit, but you can also use the optional essay to answer this question if there was something more that you feel like you need to explain. But definitely, if you're not employed right now or there's a gap in your employment, you want to address it, because we never want the committee to be making any assumptions about you or what's going on with your career path. And so then it's going to ask you how many years of employment you've had. And so I'm going to not be accurate in that, but are you receiving any financial sponsorship from your employer? So if you are, I would absolutely include this. So any sort of support or sponsorship from your employer helps mitigate any risk that the committee might see with admitting you to their program, especially if you're planning to, if you have a very interesting or niche career path, as far as short-term, long-term goals. And if you're sponsored, then they don't necessarily have to worry about your employment outcomes if you are sponsored or have partial sponsorship, because that means that you're likely going to return to the employer, because you have to sign a contract to fulfill 2 to 4 years to pay it back. If you're not supported or sponsored, it's okay too. Don't feel like that's going to hurt you in any way. I would say that more than 90% of the class is usually not going to be sponsored. But if you are, it's a great opportunity to use that. And then your LinkedIn profile. So we do get a lot of questions about this, should I have my LinkedIn profile public? Should I have it private? What should I be putting in there? And honestly, if you don't have a lot of information in your LinkedIn profile, I would copy and paste what you used for your business resume into your LinkedIn profile. It's not optimal for trying to job search, but it is definitely going to help with the reflection of what you've accomplished via LinkedIn, and be able to kind of reciprocate what they see on your resume, and potentially be a little bit more extensive or show additional connections that you have. And then if you have any certifications, they'll want to see that as well. So, if you PMP, or let's say that you have your CFA, anything like that, you want to add those there. You can also add them on your resume, and I think this is the best place to add it. So career goals. This is like a little fun moment where you do have an essay embedded in the actual application. So this is, take this seriously. This is your opportunity to kind of share what you're planning to do after you graduate. And you want to make sure you're going to share with the committee, what you're wanting to do. So, select which best is a best example of who you are. In career answer, it means that you want to continue in the field that you're in and continue to grow and move up, like management wise. Entrepreneur, obviously, that you're wanting to pursue your own business or venture. And then career explorer. And this is where I think it's good to maybe tell the committee that you're open to exploring different options, and that you're not tied down to specifically like, oh, I'm wanting to continue in finance or pivot into finance. I'm kind of open to a couple of different things. And then career switcher is like that moment of saying, I want to move from product management into finance, or etc. So these are the different profiles you can choose, and they do have their own explanation there as well to help you with deciding which one to choose. And then beyond that, this is a time to put a very succinct, when I graduate, this is what I want to do. I want to get a role in finance, working with a company like JP Morgan, right? Like, so you just want to make it pretty short and sweet so that they can see that. And then there's obviously more opportunities for you to address that throughout the application. So what's your target industry? Airline, wow, they have a lot of options, a lot more than others. And then, immediately after grad. So these should be reflecting and sounding similar to each other as you're kind of moving along. And then this is where we're going to get into your long-term goal. So if you're wanting to, like, this is how I would kind of say, either you're wanting to continue kind of like on the management role and continue to move up in a specific company, or you're wanting to potentially open your own firm, company, business, whatever it might be. So, those are, kind of the two different paths that they're looking at. Like, what, is your long game? What are you wanting to do? And so you want to be able to fill that out there. All right. So then we will move on to essays. So we won't dive into, what you should include in each one of these essays and how to best answer them, because that has already been done or will be done in a different session. GMAT Club is amazing in having these sessions. So, it's a whole different session dedicated just to answering these essay questions. Beyond that, so McCombs is asking for a cover letter, and they want it to cover your aspirations, qualifications, personal and professional experiences to make a strong candidate for the Texas McCombs full-time MBA program. So typically this is going to be, it's 500 words. So typically 1 page. Again, you want to upload it, and you want to use a PDF to do this. Sorry, let's see if it gives you any specific requirements, or I might have broke the portal. Oh, there we go.
We got a pretty interesting question in a different session that I'd like to get your opinion on. So
yeah,
it looks like for McCombs, you're allowed to upload the essay in the PDF. And with that, I think some people like to write with, their different versions of, oh, am I frozen?
I can see.
Oh, okay, sorry, it looked frozen on my screen. People like to write the essays with like a bit of formatting, like italics or bolds in some areas. What would you recommend for that? Or would you stick with plain font, or, just classic Times New Roman 12? What is your opinions here?
So there's 2 schools of thought on this. Is that one, it's either going to be printed off or somebody's going to be reading on the screen. regardless, I would stick to the entire essay being the same font, same size. I don't think that you're going to get the impact that you want by highlighting specific words. I think it honestly will be a bit distracting. I'm not sure what advice was offered in the other session, but in my opinion, I think that it's kind of off-putting or kind of gimmicky in my thought process as far as, what you're presenting to the actual committee itself.
Yeah, I think the question we had specifically was like, I forget which school it was, but they had a very long essay, I guess. They said like no word cap limit. So then someone was asking, hey, could I maybe talk about a couple different topics? And if I want to separate those into different areas, like, 2 paragraphs about this and 2 paragraphs about that, should I put a subtitle with like a little italics or bold? Like, would that come across?
If there's no word count and it doesn't like make you have like 10 pages, like just excessively long application, and you really feel like these are very different ideas, but I need them both to be in here, and you can't figure out a great connector to, make them flow, then maybe it's an option. I would say for the cover letter, I definitely in this situation, no, but for others, maybe. But like beyond that, like I've seen a lot of people, even on their resume, do that too, like bold and italic and these words that you feel like are going to pop out to people. But I feel like it ends up actually being more distracting than actually like imparting those characteristics with your profile.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Okay, so this is where you would be uploading your essentially almost one essay question that you get to do for McCombs. And so then next is you do get to use an optional statement. If there was any gaps in your employment, anything that you feel like could be red flag is a little bit harsh, I would say, but something the committee might have questions about or that they need to know. And then obviously, like if you're choosing a recommender that is not your direct supervisor or your current company, then they would want to know why you didn't choose them. And it's 100% okay to say, I felt like, with the economy or like with the industry that I'm in being so fluid that, there was a chance that it could harm my employment. And I opted for these 2 recommenders or one, recommenders. So that would be like, this is a good spot to use that. Okay, so now we will move into letters of recommendation. Okay, awesome. So, sorry, I had other tabs open of this and it was like refreshing at the same time. So letters of recommendation. So I feel like we could kind of dive into specifics about who should be a recommender, but on the surface level, it should be somebody who you have worked with directly, that supervised you for the most part, and can speak to your qualities of leadership, readiness for an MBA program, and be able to really speak to who you are, your qualities. And between GMAT Club and ARINGO and our websites, you should be able to find out what questions are asked on the letter of recommendation for each specific school. And reading that before you choose your recommender is a great idea, just so that you know that you're choosing the right person that can judge different parts of your application. It will give you a caveat that for the most part, they want you to have somebody who's going to use their corporate email. If they don't have a corporate email, then you need to kind of reach out to the committee and let them know, hey, this person cannot receive outside emails. Like they're specifically mentioning the military and Deloitte. But if there's anybody else who has a high level security where they don't allow outside emails, then that is your opportunity to say, oops, I need to let the committee know that my recommender is not going to be able to use their personal email address. So then from that point on, you're going to list out who they are, their name, and their email address. And then from there, this is an important question. So do you waive your right to access somebody's letter of recommendation? So it's here because you have the right to reserve this option. But I'll tell you two things. One is if the committee sees that you did not waive your right, means that you are putting some restrictions on your recommender that may signal that maybe you're afraid of what they might include. And for some recommenders, it also might feel like there's a lot of pressure for them to put something specifically, and so they might not feel like they can be 100% truthful or something like that. Because essentially what happens is people come back. If they're not admitted, they'll come back to the admissions committee if they did not waive their right and say, I want to see this letter of recommendation. And then they essentially kind of might assign a little bit of blame to the recommender for being one of the reasons why they didn't get admitted. So in my opinion, it's best to always waive your right to access the letter of recommendation. I hope that doesn't violate any sort of legal advice or anything like that. Again, this is my opinion and what some of the perception could be if you did not waive your right to be able to see it. And then you'll place your signature on here that you're guaranteeing that this is the person that you've chosen as part of the actual recommendation. And then once you submit that, you could be able to move to the next part of the application of getting to know you. All right, I don't see any questions right now, so just want to make sure. So emergency contact information, again, this is, for if you're admitted, needing to be able to contact somebody. If you are having somebody fill out the application for you, sometimes if you're a Fulbright candidate, this is when you would need an application representative. So for the most part, this wouldn't happen unless there was some sort of accessibility issue and you needed adaptive assistance for being able to complete the application itself. So what prompted you to apply? So this is, again, another opportunity for them to, one, do a little bit of school research and understand motivations for people for what the success of their marketing is doing. But then also, secondfold is if you are admitted, they would use this information to maybe help recruit you to actually accept your admission and to actually come. Because MBA programs, not only are they worried about admissions rates, but they're also worried about yield, right? Which means how many people that they admitted actually come. And so that they want to keep that yield number high. And by you checking specific boxes tells them, hey, I'm most interested in the curriculum, or, if I was most interested about the cost of the program, they might say, oh, maybe we would offer them some additional scholarship to help retain them. I'm not saying everybody should check that because that doesn't automatically happen, but that could be one of those things. And then, the culture, those types of things. So it gives them a little bit of a hint or a clue as to, what is motivating you to apply to their specific school and how they can maybe send you targeted emails or have somebody call you about that specific thing, especially faculty, as well as, the curriculum. They might have a faculty member call you instead, or remember how we checked concentrations? They might have somebody who's in that specific concentration give you a call and talk about their internship or, their job offer, something like that. So the next section is going to be talking about any sort of specific groups that you would want to be a part of or affiliations. And so these are really great groups that are going to help you with, again, getting more targeted or personalized emails from the committee. or from the school itself. So, they would be able to alert these committees of like, hey, graduate women in business, we have an amazing applicant who wants to, who's applied, and we've admitted her. And so they'll send you more about being a women in business, like the women in business at McCombs, the different conferences they have. They might also invite you for a special weekend. Schools will do like women in leadership. They'll have like minority admissions weekends, the veterans weekends. Like there's definitely like special recruitment efforts for different groups. And so you'll want to, check these boxes if they make sense with you. And then if offered admissions, may we share your contact information with admitted students or current students or alumni? So, obviously I would click yes, because if you were admitted, you want to, make sure you have the full scope and understand the program itself. And so they're asking for your permission to share your contact information to be, hopefully congratulated about your admission and, recruiting you. Okay, so the final page is the certification of instructions. And so this is going to tell you everything that you've gone through, whether things are complete or not. So in comparison to other programs in their application, McCombs does not allow you to print a copy of your actual application. So, you need to go through each individual section and review it before you submit it and make sure that there's no errors. So you could do print screens, those types of things, but I usually encourage our candidates to essentially, print a PDF and then honestly print it out and read through it on paper, and then kind of circle anything that you feel like you might have, be like, oh, I didn't catch this error when it was on the computer screen, but I'm catching it in writing, and highlight them and go back and edit the entire application in one sitting versus oh, okay, I read this section, now I'm reading this, Anyways, so I think that this is kind of the best way to kind of review your entire application to make sure it's ready to go before you submit it. So that's the entire application. Alicia, I think that we have a question.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yes, Jaden is asking, could you tell us more about the application fee waiver?
So application fee waivers depend on school to school. So different programs will offer an application fee waiver if you attend an event, or you might need to ask for a fee waiver from somebody from the committee, or you can even ask them if there are possibilities for them. So I know Duke Fuqua, they do have it. If you attend one of their events, you can get an application fee waiver. Cornell does it. I'm not specifically sure about McCombs, but you can obviously reach out to them and see, what financial resources they have available for an application fee waiver.
Awesome. That's very helpful. This is really great. Thank you so much for walking us through the application. I guess a couple other questions that came up. One of the things that I was personally curious about when you were in the, I believe, I forget which section, but something that I found quite unique about this application was the different segments that they had for your future career goals. Could you give us some more advice on this, this, I don't know, section, just because it seems specific to McComb?
Yeah, absolutely. I believe it was under employment, but it might be under essays.
Yeah, I hadn't seen those buckets that they had.
Yeah, and I think that McCombs does a great job of trying to get to know you ahead of the application itself, especially since they essentially only require a cover letter. So, this is your opportunity to share with them what you have to offer, what you're looking for, and they want it in a very direct way. So again, you can talk about, what kind of career you're looking at post MBA. I don't think that there's a problem with selecting any of these 4 options because they're common throughout the MBA world. This is essentially kind of really the 4 buckets you would land in. So there's not an advantage to one or the other. I think that the biggest thing is that it definitely resonates with you and your story and making sure it makes sense with what you're telling the committee between your resume, your essays, or well, cover letter, and what you hope to share when you're in your actual interview itself. And I actually realized that you can't see the drop down when I click on the button, but these are the options, right? Like career enhancer, explorer, switcher, or entrepreneur. And then again, like this, 140 characters is not very much. So, what kind of short-term goals? And this is, not 100%. Looking move into finance with a company like J. Morgan in their educational sector. Right. So you can be as specific as you want to be, or you can be more vague. If you feel like things are like a little bit iffy, or like I want to move into consulting, focusing on strategy with a top tier consulting firm, or you could put MBB. I always, when somebody wants to put MBB in here, I always recommend that you offer a tier 2 option, because MBAs are cautious of anybody who's kind of MBB or bust, because not everybody's going to get into MBB. So you need to, make sure that you're open to maybe EY, Deloitte, Kearney. Like there's so many other firms out there. The other thing is that there's firms that are more specific to different segments. So if you're wanting to go into the nonprofit route, or if you want to go towards like more like HR employment, Kearney is a great idea. Like, try to make sure that this is, if you have the ability to be specific about it, then absolutely be specific. But give a couple of options as to, like I said, a company like JP Morgan. I could also put, now I can't think of another financial institution, but you could, right? Like put another financial institution in there. And I said the educational sector, right? Because I actually have a consultant that works for JP Morgan and she does like educational financing side, or nonprofit. So you can kind of give them that little extra information about you and what you're wanting to do to make your profile a little bit more unique. And again, they give you the ability to put this, to select some of these things here. So if you're having a hard time finding what you want to write, you can always look at the options that they provide for you as well. So, I would again saying I want to move into finance with JP Morgan. And then you can talk about corporate, or even, no, they don't have necessarily nonprofit in here or in geo, but you can definitely figure out like what best fits you and your options. Again, I'm so sorry that you can't see my pop-ups. I don't know how to make that better.
I think that's just the system thing. I don't know how to change that either.
Yeah, no, I know that I can't. So sorry, but there are a lot of options underneath these drop downs here. So target industry, there's so many different options, and I apologize that I didn't realize you can see
just trust us. The options are there.
Yes, they're there. So make sure you use them.
Awesome.
And then again,
so I guess it does make sense then for the immediate question. It sounds like you're saying it's a good idea if you can think of a specific company or a couple of companies and list them there.
Exactly. Yep. So I would definitely try to, be as specific as you can without being so narrow that the committee feels like if she doesn't get this job, then she's going to just continue hold out. Because essentially for any school, why they're looking at this information is, are you employable post-grad from our program? Are you going to get to where you want to be? And this answer helps them say, yes, we have recruiters like this coming to our campus on a regular basis, and we're going to be able to help her find a job at one of these institutions or companies. And that's what they're looking for, right? Like to make sure that you're not going to be like, I'm MBB or out. And then, instead of accepting a job with Deloitte, you're waiting for an offer from McKinsey, Bain, or BCG until like 3+ months out. And then now you're hurting their employment statistics, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's what they're worried about here. And they want to make sure it's the right fit for you.
All right, that's great. I think we are close to coming up on time, but just last final question. I think, Jen, what else would you mention for people to be aware of about the McCombs application process? I think one other thing you said that really stuck out to me was at the end, they don't offer that like kind of preview setting. So printing it out on paper and giving it a second look would be really good for McComb.
Yes. And so I was trying to double check in their portal if there was any way to do that. Obviously, I can't necessarily submit my application, but the best I can tell you, unless like you submit your application and you're able to see like an end screen where they allow you to print it, then what I would do from here is make sure to screen print these pages, especially where you had to write something, and make sure that they look good, put them into Word and make sure that there's no spelling errors or, grammar errors. They're not super or super specific about grammar errors in these like 140 characters. They know that you're trying to tweet your goal. But, spelling does count for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. Cool. That's great. Thank you so much, Jen, for walking us through the application process today. Make sure for all the viewers to check out ARINGO, especially if you're interested in getting some more specific advice. Especially, I know you mentioned there is some specific information about the cover letter and that entire process, which is definitely one of the more important parts of the application. I think other than that, make sure you guys like the video. If you had questions and you're watching this later on, leave them in the comments and we'll be sure to get to them. Jen, anything else?
No, that is all for me. I, wish you the best of luck in this application season. If you need any help, I'm absolutely here to help you. We have a lot of resources on our website as well as GMAT Club. Please like and share the video.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Bye, everyone.
Thanks. Bye.